Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm Keely, Eure, joined by Shotgun Spratling, Ryan Abraham. We have some news to talk about today, which is
the intro.
fun.
You love the finger. You and Cliff will get along.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of assistant coaches, USC hired new assistant coaches this week, so we'll be talking about that. Of course, early signing period is just around the corner. It's next week starting on Wednesday. We'll give a little preview to that. And of course, USC had their team awards last night. Interesting little thing. We'll talk about that. And of course, we'll be answering your questions. I believe we are live on all three. And
Looks like
YouTube. Shouts to YouTube. We're here.
Hi, YouTube.
Two
in a row. I think we got all three. I got Periscope's up.
Let's
Hi, Periscope.
go. So make sure you put your questions, comments. We will answer them. Guys, how are you doing? How's it going?
I'm doing all right. I gotta say a little something real quick. So, look at this. Now, I'm with two people that aren't beer drinkers, but this was just dropped off from the AleSmith Brewery down in San Diego. Jose Morales. I was Jose Gonzalez. Jose Morales, who happens to be the brother of Antonio Morales. Do you know Antonio Morales? Yeah. He covers USC for The Athletic, our friend over there. But his brother is a big fan of the show and the podcast and everything, and said, hey, want to come by when he was in L.A. He dropped us off some beer. I know you don't like beer, but do you know what this is?
I do appreciate this is Tony Gwynn's batting average, career batting average.
Wow,
this is actually, he said this is Tony Gwynn's beer. So it's the Pale Ale 394.
His best season, nearly a 400.
Yeah, so I guess they came out with it like in 2014, like a couple weeks before he passed away. So he had that throat cancer.
Yeah, unfortunate.
Yeah, but anyway, I thought it was cool. Thanks to Jose for dropping that off. So I got some beer. This is great.
And he doesn't have to share.
Yeah. We might do some events. So if you're a San Diego person, we might do. He invited us to do an event down there, so we could do something cool.
San Diego, where you at?
I'm down.
Yeah, let us know, San Diego.
I love San Diego.
San Diego.
San Diego's great.
Alrighty, Tuesday.
So
Ryan is a happy man. That means it's gonna be a good show today. So Tuesday, USC made it official. They hired 2 more assistant coaches. We had reported that on Monday, but it was officially official on Tuesday. Chad K, that's how I'm going to refer to him until I memorize his last name, and Mike Jinks. What do you guys think about these hires?
Chad Kauha'aha'a.
Yeah.
Kauha'aha'a. Yeah, there's like it ends in a and there's a ha'a and a ha'a and a cow. Kauha'aha'a.
Sure.
So interesting. No, I think these are. We've sort of panned some of the previous hires. I think these are all been really good hires. Cliff Kingsbury is someone that a lot of people wanted. I think you're talking about a guy like Chad and Mike Jenks, who was just a head coach. Chad K was a head coach in high school. Had been at some other big programs, and he's been around the Pac-12, Oregon State, and Utah. So I think people that are like these are coaches that. What's my thing? They should be good at what their job is. They should have experience at what you've hired them to be. That he's been a defensive line coach. Mike Jenks has been a running backs coach, and they don't have ties to USC already. So those are all positives in my hey, those are the kind of guys you want to go after. USC went out and hired a couple of good ones. It looks like.
Yeah, I agree. I think the fact that you gone after guys that are. Did you have 2 former head coaches on the staff? I think that's good because you get some outside perspective of how they've run their programs.
Yes.
Now, both of them have ultimately failed because pretty much every head coach ultimately fails. But Mike Jinks was not successful at Bowling Green, and Cliff Kingsbury, struggled in his later seasons at Texas Tech. But the fact that that's, I think, 9 combined years, 8.5 combined years of head coaching experience, I think that gives you another perspective so they can come in. And the same thing with Chad K. You can come in and be like, hey, this looks fine and all, but this is actually what we did. I don't know if you guys want to do that, but here's something different that we did. So you can't repeat what you were continually doing. If you go 5 and 7, you got to change things up. And these guys give you an opportunity to change things because they can bring different ideas, fresh perspective to what you're doing, and maybe you make some adjustments, make some changes along the way.
Yeah, I think it's good. We saw that with Dylan McCullough when he came in. He had some different drills and stuff to do. You want that. You want someone with experience, someone that's done the job before, and these guys have done it. So I think it's a positive thing for USC.
I also think this is good for recruiting too. Now, losing T. Martin and losing Kelechi Udeze is not good for recruiting.
True.
No.
However, when you hire Mike Jinks and you hire Cliff Kingsbury, that gives you some inroads to Texas, somewhere where USC is really not recruited at all the last 3 seasons. After getting Ronald Jones and Cedric Ware, they basically have not recruited anyone from the state of Texas. They've gone after some kids, not really, pursued them too heavily. Just figured there's so many programs in Texas, we're not gonna worry about it. Now you have inroads though with some of those high school head coaches and different things like that. So especially West Texas, where Lubbock was, you're gonna get an opportunity there to go in and get some kids potentially. I think that this gives them an opportunity to expand a little bit more. The fact that they've done so well with Polynesian kids and adding Chad K, I think is only going to help there with some of the defensive linemen they've been bringing in and stuff. I think that they have an opportunity to, maybe it's a different group of kids they're going to go after rather than, T. Martin was so good with the kids in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
He had really good, strong ties there. This is going to give you ties in somewhere else. Maybe someone else takes T. Martin's spot. Maybe Gavin Morris, he fills in that role even more than he already was. But I think it's an opportunity to change, necessarily the recruiting path that you have and the geography of your recruiting path. So we'll see how that changes, what they're going after, and who they're trying to get. But I think it's good to get into Texas at least because there's a lot of talent in Texas, obviously.
Yeah, like Levi Jones is no longer on the team, so he was probably the last guy, right?
Yeah, he was the last one recruited, I believe.
Yeah. I don't think there's any Texas guys left on the team, right?
Not scholarship, technically.
Right,
because
the
Alex
kicker.
Stadhouse,
Okay.
who played in every game. You also have Chris Edmondson, and I believe there's one other walk-on that's on the team. But those guys are from Texas and came to USC, but are not scholarship players. Levi Jones was the last one. He's no longer on the team. Like I said, Eure is no longer on the team. So currently, I don't believe there are any on the team.
Yeah.
Scholarship guys.
But as far as early signing day, I know there's only 8 days, and I believe,
8 days from when they were.
Yeah, 8 days since they announced it. How much can adding a coach like that last minute, does that help at all, or is it kind of a moot point?
Yeah, I think it's hard. Like you don't sign guys usually at the very end. It's it's kind of this a process, and this is the early signing period. But you need to know. I think there's certain position guys that they would like to see, like a Chris Steele. I think would like to know who the defensive back coach is. Someone that USC's recruited them all the way, but then you want to see who that position coach is that you're going to be working with. So I think it could be a helpful thing, but I don't think you expect Mike Jenks to come in and start recruiting a whole bunch of running backs or anything. But it's really going to be that, hey, here's who we end up getting. He's going to be working with you, for the next few years. Do you like him? Whatever, So I think it's just sort of you want someone in place as opposed to just not having anybody.
Yeah.
And so USC still needs a defensive back coach and one other one potentially like an outside receivers coach or something.
It doesn't hurt you because a new guy's not gonna come in and be like, oh, I just don't like that new guy. And that's not gonna be what's good because you've had the uncertainty of not having the coach. I think it helps the fact that now okay, now I get to see you start to build that relationship. It's only a week basically to build that relationship, but you start and you get that initial feel. You kind of get you already know what you know about the school and Clay Helton and the rest of the staff around him. Now you get to kind of feel out the coach and maybe you look at what he's done in the past and different things like that. But it's not going to hurt you. I don't know how much it's really going to help you going on, but it's definitely not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as Mike Jenks, we mentioned before that he worked with Cliff Kingsbury previously. How much does that help if you're an offensive coordinator coming into a new place, a new situation, having a guy that you've been successful with before?
Yeah, I think I thought there would be a couple hires from Cliff Kingsbury. And it looks like there's only one, like one that he was, someone he's really familiar with. And if you remember when we talked about, Texas Tech having a 1,400 yard rusher, was it? I can't.
DeAndre Washington.
DeAndre Washington. That was under, Mike Jenks and stuff. So I think that certainly helps. I thought they might bring in, believe it's Brandon Jones was the offensive line coach. He ended up signing with, I think he went to North Carolina. I think he went with Mac Brown in North Carolina. So it became kind of clear, like, okay, the running back coach was something that was open. Now he might get a wide receivers coach too to go along with Keely Colbert. But you want people familiar with the air raid, and I think, I think it's important to have an offensive line coach that's familiar with it. So we'll see, they're going to have to obviously work together on this. But having someone that he's worked with and had success with the running backs, I think, certainly helps. And someone he's familiar with. He's coming in and installing a whole new system. You'd like someone else there that knows it well like you do.
Yeah, it can also teach up that's one of the things you want to be able to teach up the other positions. And, Cliff Kingsbury can't be in every single position meeting.
Yeah.
So to be able to teach up the different positions will be helpful. The thing with USC is they need to get a DBs coach. That's obvious. But then they can kind of pick and choose where they want that other coaching position to be. Because you can move Keely Colbert receivers if you want. So you don't necessarily have to have a receivers coach coming in. You can make Tim Drevno just a run game coordinator if you really wanted. I don't know why you would do that.
Yeah.
Not have him as offensive line. Bring in an offensive line coach. You could do that. You could also move Johnny Nansen around. You could have an extra linebackers coach and have Johnny Nansen just coach the outside linebackers and, have a inside linebackers coach. You can do different things. You could bring in 2 DB coaches. You could have a safeties coach and a cornerbacks coach. So there are a lot of different things they can do with that 10th position. The position that wasn't there, 2 years ago, was when they first introduced the 10th extra coach. So we'll see what they do with it. They got to get a DB's coach first and figure that position out. But then they have some flexibility with the other coach. They can do some different things. So I don't think that, I think their options are finding the best coach rather than finding, we got to have this specific position coach.
Yeah.
As far as timing for the other coaches, though, do you think this is kind of a quote-unquote dead period itself for getting new coaches, or are you doing both things at the same time, recruiting and finding new coaching staff guys?
Yeah, we've heard they've been looking for DB coaches and talked to some guys. We'll have some stuff in the war room tomorrow about some of that if you want to check that out on uscfootball.com. But I haven't heard much, I don't personally, I just haven't heard much about the 10th assistant, like another receivers coach. So it might be one of those things where they're going to figure out, okay, we wanted these guys, then you move forward. And, maybe there could be potentially more turnover, or coaches could leave or whatever after signing period. I don't think we're going to hear much between now and the signing period, early signing period, which is December 19th, next Wednesday, outside of potentially having a defensive back coach hired. Yeah. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I think that if you're Clay Helton, the head coach can only go on so many in-home visits. He can only have, I think it's 1 in-home visit in this period leading up to the signing period. So you're not making as many rounds as some of the other coaches are. Your time should be spent focused on, besides those specific in-home visits, is also looking for the head coach, your position coach.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, with the other hires it's not going to hurt you if you bring a guy in, but it might boost you up just a little bit, that they know, okay, well, this is the guy it's going to be. And maybe, if it's a guy that's in the Pac-12 already, maybe they already have a relationship with that guy. Maybe they've been recruited by him. They like him. And, man, I don't necessarily like that other school as much as I like USC. And you bring him in, and all of a sudden they go, oh, well, now I got the coach I really liked plus the school I really liked, and it might work together for you in that regard. So you never know because there's a lot of connections that are made, and it's not always just, it's not USC just recruiting these kids. And, okay, well, you bring in a coach, and he's obviously never taught. No, everybody has connections. Everybody's been working this the whole time. So you bring in somebody, maybe there's already a relationship there, and that helps you out as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of early signing period, or early signing day, if you will, next Wednesday, we have a special treat for you guys. We're going to have a special live show on that day with the one and only Gerard Martinez. He will be in studio with us, which will be fun. That's going to be Wednesday night. It's going to be after USC does their little presser thing, so we'll be able to break everything down. So that's a fun little treat for you guys if you want to.
Probably 7-ish p.m. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know when the press conference is going to be. Most likely like 7 p.m. or 7:30. So check back on Wednesday. So that's what our show next week will be, Wednesday night. We're not going to do a Sunday show.
Yeah.
So we'll do Wednesday night. We'll do that. We're still setting some stuff up in the studio. And maybe that Wednesday night we'll take some live calls, potentially, for recruiting.
Wow.
We're going to try it. We'll see. I'm working on it. I've building stuff out. We'll see.
It'll be a fun time on Wednesday, so make sure you join us. MVP of the USC team. They got the awards last night. I'll put up the little graphic. MVP of the team was Cam Smith, voted by the players, I believe. What do you guys feel about that? I feel like that is a pretty good call by them.
Who would you vote for? That's the question. I would have voted for Iman Marshall. That would have been my pick.
Really?
It would have been a close race, but I would have voted for Iman Marshall.
He was defensive perimeter player of.
They have a lot of awards.
There was perimeter player. So I think Jay Tufele got the interior alignment, defensive lineman. Iman Marshall got the perimeter defensive player. Michael Pittman got the perimeter offensive player. And who was the offensive lineman? Was it Chris Brown? Chris Brown did.
There's 15 awards, plus the captains get honored again. And not all of these awards are just one person. Right? There's lineman of the year, so there's 2 big guys there. So there's a good 25 guys, if not more, winning awards at the thing. So a quarter of your team's going to get an award.
Yeah. So if you didn't get one, I'm sorry, but it just must not be that good. No.
Wow.
But no, Cam Smith, I think you have to give. He led the team in tackles for the 3rd year in a row. That hadn't happened for USC in almost 40 years. Now he had 81 tackles, so it wasn't like as monster of a year as he's had. He's had over 100 the last couple, right? I think so, or it's close to that. So, but it's still like, led the team in tackles again. That's 3 years
With
in
an
a row.
injury.
Yeah, missing a game and a half or whatever it was.
2.5.
2.5 games. So, that's still. I think you needed senior leadership on this team. There was a lot of weird things that weren't positive that happened, and I think a guy like him kind of tried to keep it together as well as you could. So
Yeah.
I'm cool with him being the MVP.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, I don't have an issue with him being MVP. I said
Why
it'd be
do you
close.
hate Cameron Smith?
But I would have voted for Imar Marshall if I was
right.
having a vote.
In what sense?
He completely shut down one side of the field for USC. I mean, you had a lot of turnover in the secondary, and it didn't matter when they were throwing at him. I think he gave up 1, maybe 2 touchdowns in the season, and he was on the island almost all the time. I thought he improved his game so much from last season to this season. He took that next step. He would have been my guy because he shut down one side of the thing. He played the whole season. I mean, he played through his injuries. I think he played all 12 games. Cam Smith, again, missed that 2.5 games. Really 3 games. He played 8 snaps in that Utah game. So you're saying he's missed a quarter of the season.
True.
I'm going to take the guy who's played the entire season and was dominant. I wrote about him, should be in All-American consideration. He went down a little bit at the end of the season when he was banged up, still playing through it. So I think he was really good, and he would have been my pick. I don't think it's a bad call either way, but if I was voting, Imar Marshall would have been my pick.
He led the team with 9 pass deflections, I believe, and I think Jenny Harris had to have 7. Harris had most inspirational player, I think it was.
Yes, I believe so.
He was that. I thought, Porter Gustin.
He would have been the MVP if he played the entire season.
Yeah,
and you could even make an argument for him because he's the most valuable guy. When he was in there, it was a completely different defense.
He got the leadership award or whatever.
And the lifter award, and he was a captain.
Yeah.
So his name got called a couple times.
I got to call someone out. Not call him out, but mention someone from Periscope. 1 second.
Do it. Speaking of which,
On
get your
the right-
questions in.
On the right in CA, he says, watching your show with earphones at dinner, fam doesn't want to hear this. LOL, dedicated. Well, thanks for being dedicated. Listening while
Thank you for the
you're listening to our
dedication.
show while you're eating dinner with the family. And
It's
they're
okay. We can convert them.
Yeah.
Give one earphone away. Just
Maybe
give them a
unplug the
taste of it.
headphones. We have some talking to do to your family. No, I'm just kidding. Shall we go into questions?
Always.
Is there anything else we want to address
Okay.
at the top of the show?
Oh, first off, Cam Smith finished with 112 tackles last year, only 83 the year before.
Okay.
And he was leading the team. He led the team 3 of his 4 years. He would have led them all 4 if it wasn't for the injury his freshman year. Any other of those awards stood out to you? One of the things I always look at is the special teams player of the year,
Yeah, that was Ruben Peters,
which
right?
went to Ruben Peters. Now, granted, he's a redshirt senior, so he's not coming back. I always look at the special teams player and the service team players to see if there's somebody that might be stepping up the next year. The service team players of the year, tailback Quincy Junti, who was not eligible this season. Offensive tackle Liam Douglas. Inside linebacker Spencer Gilbert, the walk-on from St. John Bosco.
Yeah.
And outside linebacker Bryce Matthews. Now, you got 3 walk-ons and Liam Douglas on there. But that's one of the things I always look at to see, because a guy like Sam Darnold was on there.
Sure.
Those are the guys that, you don't necessarily talk about. You don't talk about the service team, but maybe that's a guy that you see take a step the next year. So I always check those. Those are the ones I always look at as well.
Spencer Gilbert, the son of the USC track coach, and his dad played at Alabama. I golfed with him and stuff before. Cool guy, Greg Gilbert. Yeah.
And his mom just won, I think, the Nike Coach of the Year.
I think
award or
so.
something
Yeah,
like that
yeah.
as well.
Yes.
So we actually have to give another shout out to Michael Grimm, who says, I'm watching the show while shopping at Walmart in Texas. Shouts to you, Michael. Thanks
Nice.
for doing that.
We might want to mention the BOGO thing too.
Oh, right. Ryan, it's your time to shine.
Yes. So so if you guys are watching this, we're part of USCfootball.com. I know some people are like, I was tweeting with someone and they're like, yeah, I know the show on YouTube. And like, that's all I know. Well, we have a website. We have a lot of content that goes up, and he actually didn't know.
There's
And
more to this.
So he signed up on USCfootball.com. So basically, if you want to be a VIP member and you get all the access to the Peristyle, which is the busiest USC message board out there, you can talk on that with other Trojan fans 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's crazy. But lots of premium features. We put up the War Room every Friday, like we mentioned earlier, and a lot of recruiting stuff, a lot of inside information on the team. And it's just $10 a month. But if you sign up right now for like the next day, I think you get buy one, get one free. So you buy 1 month and you'll get 2 months. So you basically pay $10, and for the next 60 days, you'd have access to the site. So make sure you go check it out on USCfootball.com. You should see it up near the top of the page. But we'd love you guys to be members. So love that you're watching, but love you to be a member too.
Yeah, plus the peanut gallery in YouTube. If you guys like talking to each other, you can do that on the peristyle.
Yeah, and it
It's a
stays
great-
there,
it's
and
a
it's
great
like
thing.
people. Yeah, and it's crazy. The message board is crazy. There's
Crazy in a
doctors
good
and
way.
lawyers and all these people arguing like 5-year-olds sometimes about USC football. So maybe I'm not selling that well, but it's like crazy. Really successful people that passionately care about this team that will argue to the death about what
In
this
a
team
great
should do.
way.
Yeah, in a good way.
Shouts to Stavers, I believe. He says, "I'm so close to becoming a premium member. I don't know what's stopping you.
Do the
but
BOGO.
Do it.
I would get one free.
Do it. Do it.
A couple of other awards that were given out on the
Sure,
YouTube.
shotgun.
The biggest bullet dodge of the year was given to Clay Helton. The worst snapper of the war went to Toa Lomond. Guys, give us your awards. Let's make them a little bit more positive.
Yeah.
You don't give
Positive
awards for
awards.
negative things. Those are bad. You don't get those.
Yeah.
Give them the. Let's see some positive awards. What do you guys got? Put your comments in.
Yeah.
Put your comments. We will. What if we have like a Tunnel Vision award show? Like we make our own awards.
That would be good. Yeah.
We can dress up in suits. Or you guys
Maybe
will.
not.
I'll be in a. Oh, okay.
You could be a
This
pantsuit or
sounds fun.
something.
Shotgun suit into it. Okay, we have a question from Niners GM. Wow, who says new strength coach coming? Lots of question marks. We've heard this a lot.
Yeah.
We've been asked this a lot.
We've been asked it. That's the key. We've been asked this a lot.
We have not heard anything though. There's not
No.
even a lot of rumors about it. The potential move. If it happens, it happens. But there's no opening there, so no, there's no strength.
There's
coach
no
now.
opening, and I think if something was going to happen, it would probably be after the signing period. I don't think there's any focus on doing something like that now. I don't know if there's any focus at all, but if it was, it would be later on.
Yeah, recruiting and position coaches are important right now. When USC comes back from winter break, that's when the strength coach gets his hands on the players. That's when it'll be most important. So you could have a hire anytime between them because coaches are not with the players right now. So if they're going to make that hire, it doesn't have to be right now if they're going to make that fire and hire. But there's no opening right now. So no.
Yeah, it's weird that the Niners GM wrote into the show, and the Raiders GM was fired. Reggie McKenzie, Jalen McKenzie's father, who plays for the football team.
And it was really weird. John Gruden's like, well, he's a good friend of mine. I didn't do that. And backed away from the whole situation. Get out of here.
Yeah.
You're the one that created all this mess.
Anyway, we have a question from our buddy Tester Troy.
Oh, hi, Tester.
He says, "Can we get Shotgun's opinion on Clancy Pendergast's defensive philosophy and how it fits with this USC team?"
Defensive philosophy in what regard? That's the big question there. USC uses the 2-4-5 defense. I've crunched all the numbers. I've been going through them for the last couple of days. I spent like eight straight hours on a spreadsheet on one day. But USC's defense was much better in the nickel than it was in their base defense, which is with an extra defensive lineman. So playing to the team's strengths, and granted, the team was much better. Had much more experienced defensive backs this season than defensive linemen. They were much better with an extra defensive back rather than an extra defensive lineman. So I think that it played into it this year. Now, next year, when you basically have the reverse of that, where your defensive linemen got a lot of experience this year, the Tefeles, the Brandon Peelys, the Marlon Tuipulotus, those guys, Jacob Lichtenstein, those all guys are going to have much more experience than your DBs, who are going to be guys coming back from injury and young guys. So do you see a bit of a change there? How much does it change depending on the tempo you run on the offensive side? What do you do differently on the defensive side? I think a lot of that has to do with it. I think the Clancy Pendergast scheme works fine at USC. I think that you see him adjust to teams based on what they do and kind of try to attack different ways. The thing with Clancy Pendergast scheme is it works really well a lot of times, but if it's not working well, then it goes really bad.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a you go for it, or it's an aggressive scheme, and that's what happens. You're going to leave guys on islands, and if you're not playing well in the back half of your defense, you're going to give up big plays in that regard. But then if you don't, and he blitzes a lot. Some of those are run blitzes, some of those pass blitzes. But if you blitz a lot, you can give up big runs too.
Sure.
You saw that this year when some guys got out of gap. So that's part of the reason why he trusts the veteran players a little bit more, is because once you get out of that gap, that's when you get that 80-yard run. Like when Palia and Itiote gets out of his gap against Arizona State and they take it to the house, those type of things. You try to avoid those with guys that know the defense a little bit better. So sometimes I think it kind of flows different ways. Sometimes it really works well with this team when they have a veteran group. But then with the younger guys, you want to get them some playing time. You got to be able to kind of be malleable and give them plays where one guy's out of the gap a little bit, and it's not going to blow your whole defense.
Right. That's what Dan Weber's big criticism is always, that he's saying, like, if you don't have all 11 guys on the same page, one guy screws up, you can give up a touchdown. So that's where he feels like there is a, sometimes you can just have a guy go crazy and he does the wrong thing, but he still makes a play. But Dan was always feeling like this defense, if everyone's not on the same page, someone screws up one position, it could be over. And you could give up some big plays.
And with the athletes USC has, do you want them to freelance more? Do you want guys like that played the Troy Polamalu role with the Steelers, where he could be lined up anywhere, he may rove anywhere, and he was kind of allowed to do whatever he wanted. And the rest of the team had a set defense, and he kind of wasn't always involved in the team defense. So you kind of got to figure out what you want to do there. And if you have those special players, can you mold the defense where it's 10 guys playing defense and one guy being himself and make that work?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that Clancy, I love the way he matches up with different things. I love watching him and Mike Leach go at it. It's one of the best matchup all year. I'm very disappointed it's not going to happen for 2 more years unless they meet in the Pac-12 championship. But he also needs to be able to be malleable and be able to change his defense as necessary to fit the personnel. And I think he does a good job of fitting it to the teams he's playing. He's got to do a little bit better job fitting it to the players.
Yeah. We got a 21 Stevie on Periscope real quick.
Sure.
Since one of our topics was recruiting, he wanted to know, what was it? How do you think USC recruiting is going? Is it going to be a top 10 class? And just so we're not going to go, deep into the weeds on recruiting on this show until next week. We'll do a lot of that. But the early signing period is 3 days, starts Wednesday, December 19th, goes to the 21st. It's really become the de facto signing day. That's where most of the people are going to sign. USC wants to bring in a much bigger class this year. They need to fill in some of the holes. So maybe 28 guys or so. I think that's what Gerard was saying. Something, more than the 25. You can count guys backwards a little bit. So it'll be curious. It seems like it's not going to be we just did a premium recruiting podcast with Gerard this week. If you want to listen to that, I put that up yesterday on uscfootball.com. So that's a lot of detail about recruiting. It feels more like a top 15-ish kind of class. I don't know. What do you think, Shotgun? I mean, maybe they could get the top 10, but
it depends on some of those guys that are making their decisions. USC usually closes really well, but how different is it when there's not a true closing period? I mean, right. USC on signing day last year. And there was the early signing period, but it still hadn't gained full momentum. And it gained a lot of momentum. There was probably 60%, I think, something like that last year of the top guys signed early. But USC on signing day still got Elijah Griffin, Solomon Tulipupu, Devin Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm probably missing a couple. But they cleaned up on signing day.
The February
signing day. If you don't have that extra time at the end of the season, are you going to be up? And USC usually does really well for one thing because they can bring guys in January and say, hey, do you really want to go to Oregon?
Yeah.
Do you really want to go to Michigan where and they'll show if I was them, I would have a temperature gauge up of every rival, whoever the recruit is that's coming up. I would have, here's your top 5 schools. Here's what the temperature is right now when you're coming in.
Do a live cam of like Eugene, Oregon, or
Michigan or Ohio State, whatever schools you're going up against. Like put them like, that looks like it's really rough there. Yeah. Do you really want to do that? Like
let's go to the beach.
Yeah, exactly. So USC does really well because of the sun and fun. In January, you can still have that, where in other climates you can't, and they've done really well pushing that at times with kids. But they're not going to have that to rely on. So now it's still winter, but it's still not as bad as January is. So they've got to expedite the schedule, and they haven't done that previously. Their recruiting starts after the season ends. They try to focus on the season and then go from there. And I just don't think you can do that anymore.
Yeah, and it's the last couple of years, you had something to sell at the end. You could sell guys with, hey, going to the Rose Bowl, or won the Rose Bowl, or won the Pac-12. This year, no bowl game, 5-7. So it gives it a little more time to recruit. We've seen Clancy Pendergast right after the season on visits with people. We haven't really seen much of that before, but you don't have that sell at the end, and there is some uncertainty. So I think you might see a bigger class, which when you get ranks, like just having more people, I think that helps a little bit. USC's been doing a lot of smaller classes, so they'll get a bump for more players. But there's going to be more 3-star guys. There's going to be more like Plan B kind of guys in this class than USC fans are normally accustomed to.
So we've got some interesting submissions for awards. We have Kevin who says coolest name award goes to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Kenny,
cool.
my boy, says Shotgun gets the stock neutral award.
Jeez. Get out of here.
You should wear the shirt, Keely.
Yeah, I should. Kyle says award for ignoring listener questions goes to Keely. Thanks for starting that, Ryan.
Why does she not like to answer your questions?
No,
I don't know, people.
I
like to answer them all. I know Shotgun does.
We've gotten some good submissions. Any YouTube questions that you find fancy, Shotgun?
Is Washington becoming a recruiting problem? It feels like they've gotten a lot of the top guys from Southern California, especially on defense over the past few years. I think they're doing really well up there, especially with the DBs. Now they have their co-defensive coordinator previously was their DB coach, but also their DB coach now is Will Harris, former USC DB. So, he can, is from Southern California as well, so he can really sell it.
I think he worked in kind of like Gavin Morris. I think he worked in that 7-on-7 circuit for a while too.
Yeah, and I think they've done a really good job, especially with the back seven of guys there. They've gotten a number of guys, over the last probably 5 years from the Southern California area, from the Centennials, the Boscos, those. So I think they've done really well there, and they can really sell DBs too because their DBs have been really good.
Yeah, they had the best secondary in the conference probably.
And this is after they had three, top 3 round picks, I think 2 years ago or something like that with Sidney Jones and that group. So they've done really good there, and I think that program is stable. And it's nice. And, they've won 8-9 games every year for the last 4 or 5 years. They've been in the college football playoff, so there's a lot to sell there. So obviously the team that is probably your most consistent over your last 5-year run in any conference is going to be doing well, and I think they're doing a good job of selling that. And they've done a good job of coming to Southern California and finding some talent in some areas where maybe there's not a ton of DB talent up in Washington, or maybe there's not a ton of whatever position it may be. But they've got some, they got some big hog mollies. They got some of those guys up there, and they've done well with those. You got to eat a lot when you're cold. So there's some big boys up there. So
I think it's more of a coaching problem than a recruiting problem because they have the best coach in the conference in Chris Peterson, and they are now starting to recruit like they have the best coach in the conference, and it's they are here to stay. Washington, I'll say it. Pat Hayden made a big mistake bringing in not only Steve Sarkisian because that was a screw up and that lasted a year and a half at USC, but that allowed Chris Peterson to go to Washington. They're going to be a Pac-12 power for the short-term future. I think for long-term too. I think he's going to be there for a while. So it's a real problem that you have to be. So you can't. I don't think USC can half-ass it and beat teams like Washington. So you're going to have to go head-to-head against guys like that. And I think you're only going to see that program get better.
I'm curious to see how that Washington program will do with a better quarterback. Jake Browning is a capable quarterback, but I do not think he's a great quarterback. I think Jacob Eason is better than him, who will be eligible next season, transfer from Georgia. We'll see how they do with him. If they can protect him and give him some time, I think they could be really good.
They might be a lot better because Jake Browning's a game manager. Was it Kellen Moore, or what was it, Kellen Moore? He would always have those kind of guys that were just not the dynamic playmakers, but they wouldn't make mistakes. You get some of those skill guys they have and a dynamic quarterback, I think you can do some good things. So we'll see. Yeah, I think Washington's going to be a real problem for USC going forward. So you got to step things up.
So this is kind of breaking as we are on air.
Oh, crap.
Not breaking, but we've gotten a lot of questions about potential DBs coaches. Our buddy Casey Cosgrove says, thoughts on Greg Burns potentially becoming USC's next DB coach?
So he's someone that USC fans were familiar with. He coached at USC before. He's up at Oregon State right now. We'll have more stuff in the war room for sure, but I think his name came up a week ago or something, and then there was definitely other names that USC was after. That I think the other two have been fairly smooth, like the defensive line coach and the running backs coach. I think those were fairly smooth. There seemed to be a little rockier road with the defensive back coach, but that's the latest name like you're kind of hearing. I know there was the safety coach from the Rams that was kind of bombing around. There's been a bunch of names mentioned for the defensive back coach. So check the war room again we'll have some more on that.
The war room. And speaking of the war room and being a premium member, Stabbers signed up for a membership during the show.
Hey, Stabbers.
He says I get MVP for membership recruiter.
Way to go, Stabbers. Nice.
Got
Thank
his own
you.
award and gave himself an award.
Yeah. So shouts to Stabbers.
Yeah. Keely with the assist.
Yeah, thank you. Donald, I think he's trying to ramp you up, Ryan. He says, should USC go independent from the Pac-12?
Oh.
I think we get this question.
We kind of do.
Weekly now.
Yeah, I think I actually met with a guy who works in television, had lunch with him this week, and he's definitely an advocate of that or something. The problem is USC's brand isn't the best right now. I think independence is interesting, and I would never say no. I think just threatening that is always good, or just exploring that. But maybe a package sort of deal. And I think there was a story that came out today about the Big 12 maybe getting like USC, UCLA, or USC, UCLA, Arizona, Arizona State, something like that. I think you could do a lot better. Like the Big 12, you get to have your tier 3 rights. So Texas has their own network. They make a lot of money on that. But Oklahoma makes a lot of money just because they can sell their tier 3 rights to like the local Fox, or not the local Fox, like the regional Fox outlet or whatever. USC's all that stuff tied in with the Pac-12. The problem is the contract they signed is awful. It goes to 2023 or 24, whatever it is with the Pac-12. If they left, the Pac-12 would get all of their rights. So what you have to do as your USC, do not let Larry Scott extend the current TV deal that goes after 2024. And before, within a couple of years of it ending, explore your options. So explore going independent and like being on NBC, like the second game with Notre Dame or something, or USC and UCLA or some of the other schools. Look at joining another conference, package deal sort of thing. Look at all those things, because that's the only way you're going to get a better deal with the Pac-12. The Pac-12 right now is like, it's awful, and it's only getting worse. It's going to get worse year after year. You need to kind of force yourself. So the Big 12 doesn't have their own network, but you get to own your tier 3 rights. So that's not as good. Kansas can do their own thing, but they're not going to do as well in football as Oklahoma does. Same thing. USC would make a bunch more money. They'd make a lot more money having their tier 3 rights. So some of those other games that they would have the rights to, as opposed to giving them to the Pac-12 and getting the same share, which is puny, as Oregon State.
Jay Johnson wants to know, will Isaac Taylor Stewart get any playing time this year? And if not, will he transfer?
Well, there's only a few days left in the year, so I don't think he's going to. What do you guys think?
So he played, I think, 4 defensive snaps this year. And then he got injured. He redshirted, so he still has 4 years to play. All indications are they're a guy that they want him to be a part of this program. They want him to eventually take over a starting role there. There's going to be question marks at those cornerback spots, because all your cornerbacks are gone now. You lost Iman Marshall, you lost Isaiah Langley. Those are your 2 starters. The guys that you would move out if you really needed to, Jenny Harris or Jonathan Lockett. You got 4 cornerbacks there that are gone. Now you have Greg Johnson returns. You got Elijah Griffin returns. You got ITS. Those are your main guys. Dominic Davis is probably a nickel back more. Chase Williams is more nickel or safety. So off the top of my head, yeah, he's going to be right in the mix for it. Now, does he earn that time? He's got to prove himself.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything necessarily to prove that he should be getting snaps over Iman Marshall or Isaiah Langley. Elijah Griffin was the guy the coaches talked about as being, advanced. He was coached up so well at Mission Viejo. All that type of stuff is what you heard early on. So he was the guy that was in line to get more snaps, and he did. He got some snaps, in place of Isaiah Langley and stuff. He got burned by Vic Wharton against Cal. Yeah. So he was the next guy though after Greg Johnson, because Greg Johnson got injured again as well. So there's a lot of question marks there, because there's injury concerns with a lot of guys in the secondary. Greg Johnson's coming off injury. Isaac Taylor Stewart's coming off injury. Isaiah Polamau. There's a lot of injuries in that secondary. Who's going to be healthy coming back? Talanoa Hufanga coming back from the broken collarbone. First off, guys got to be healthy, and then they got to prove themselves. And there's going to be openings, and that's why if I'm a big-time DB recruit, USC might be a place I'm looking at, because I know that there's playing time available.
Yeah,
yep, that's
for
a
sure.
great point.
Dominic Davis is a weird one. Our buddy Michael Castillo loves him and always wants him to win the Heisman and stuff. But, man, it seemed like there was opportunities for him to get in a game late in the season. It just didn't happen.
I mean, he did start playing some special teams, I believe, at Utah, so he got some time, but not as far as defensive back.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, they were down to like nobody. They were like on fumes in the defensive backfield, and a guy like C.J. Pollard wasn't really getting much run. It was weird. Like there's some guys there, but
I mean, Dominic Davis, for whatever reason, so he had already redshirted. He redshirted last year, so you're not saving him for those 4 games, but he didn't play the first 6 games of the season. And then he gets put in special teams and plays the last 6 games of the season. So, like, why? What was? Did you get a half-season suspension or something? Or something we hadn't heard about? I don't know. But it just seemed weird. It's like, because some people were like, oh, well, maybe they're saving him so he can redshirt. It's like, no, he already redshirted last year, so he doesn't have that option available. So it's kind of weird there. He'll have 1 year remaining. Maybe if I'm him and the new DB coach comes in, that's a guy I'm trying to impress every single day. Yep. I'm going to be, Coach, what do you need me to do? What can I watch some extra film with you? Whatever it may be. And if you see by the end of springtime that they're still going to pass me over, that's a guy I would look at to potentially be a grad transfer.
Sure.
Because if you're not going to play, why would you stay?
Yeah. I mean, I think new coaches always give you an opportunity. Like if there's a coach for whatever reason, we've seen that before. Like guys we know can play.
Michael Hutchings,
Alan Bradford, like whatever it is, whoever the player is, for whatever reason, they were. I mean, Buck Allen was not good. Yeah, it's like, you owe me a Coke, Jinx.
Jinx,
Mike
I got a beer. I don't need a Coke. Yay. So I just want to go watch the NFL game. But
This is such a weird television.
it's kind of weird television. But
Ryan,
yeah, but you get a new coach in, and now you have a whole new opportunity. You have a new lease on life. And if whatever reason the coach didn't like you, and now you have a new coach, they don't have that same kind of bias, and you can show them what you can do.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Jordan has a question on YouTube. He says, do you think these hires will greatly improve the Trojans next season and make them national contenders?
Not to national contenders, but greatly improved, yes, because you're talking about a broken offense that was number 90 out of 129 in scoring. Like, that's awful for the kind of talent that USC has and the not very difficult schedule that they played, especially with the Pac-12 being down. So, yes, I think the Cliff Kingsbury hire alone will propel this team to do good things on offense. Like, if JT Daniels starts, he probably sets the all-time USC passing record, like for yards, like just instantly, like just because of the way the offense is. So I think that alone, you could win 3 or 4 more games. Are you going to be competitive nationally, though? From what I've seen, this isn't enough. Like you've changed some things, important things. You took a broken offense and you're going to make it work, but it's not. This isn't changing the culture. There's one big move, but not really a lot of other big moves. So I don't think it propels you to national prominence, but I think it propels you to likely winning the Pac-12 South again, or at least, being competitive for it this year.
Yeah, I think that this greatly enhances the offense. I think that you're going to find more matchups. They're going to be able to use guys in better situations. You'll make adjustments more because you'll have an extra coach for one. Because once you fired Neil Callaway, you lost a coach. They can make extra adjustments and stuff, in-game adjustments. And I think that Cliff Kingsbury has shown that he does a really good job of play calling and adjusting it as the game goes out. And USC didn't do very well with that. So if they score 7 more points in a game, or 8 more points, we'll say, well, they would have won those last 4 games.
Yeah.
They lost their last 4 losses were all by a touchdown or less. So it's a dramatically different season if you're 9-3 versus 5-7.
Yeah.
And I think this team can easily bounce back and get to 9-3 or something like that. Can they take that next step? I think the offense will be better, but can you change the entire culture so that you're more physical, you're disciplined, you do the things that were repeated issues? Can you churn the tide in a game? When the momentum starts going against you, can you churn that? Or are you just like, oh man, it was good while it lasted at Texas. It was good while it lasted at Utah. Remember when we had those leads? That was cool. Before we gave up 34 straight points. 34 straight points. Twice. Turn the tide. Like, at least score or do something
Right.
to change. Like,
That won't happen next year.
that's mental. That's a culture thing. Like,
Yeah.
that's a team mentality. Like, where's the guy on the sideline? Like, no, we got this. Who's the guy to go? And hey, you can have a guy that does that, but if the entire culture is woe is me, it doesn't matter. You can have 1 or 2 really good, good eggs that are going to go and do everything you would need. But if no one's willing to buy in, and that was what Cam Smith said. Hey, we had an issue with buy-in.
Yeah.
So you got to change the culture if you want to get to contending for CFP, getting into the college football playoff and then potential contending for that. I think it starts with the offense, and you'll be much better next year because of that. But then, can you take that next step? That will come with culture.
Real quick, I just noticed our tickers broke down the bottom of the screen. We had the schedule.
I took it
done.
off.
Oh, you took it? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people said they were triggered by it.
Oh,
Scrolling.
because
Yeah.
it was scrolling. Oh,
The season's
sorry.
over, Ryan. I
guess it's over. I'll put something else there now. All right.
I made some changes like 2 weeks ago, so I'm glad you're paying attention.
Yeah, well, it's like there's space underneath it. We'll have to fix that.
Well, okay.
On a
Matt
couple.
wants to know, is Palaie Naoteote going to be the definite replacement for Cam Smith next season?
I mean, he practiced there the entire season. I don't know who else you would put there.
Yeah.
Now, the possibility is, where does Solomon Tuliaupupu fit in when he's healthy? Do you put him at the wheel? Do you put him at the mic? Does he learn behind? I could see him having a very similar track as Palaie Naoteote had this season, where he is behind John Houston. He learns that position. You expect him to take over the position when John Houston's gone. Doesn't get as much playing time as maybe you want. But then if there's an injury or something, then he hops in.
Yeah.
I think that might be what you see. And then those two guys rule the middle of the field for the next year and a half or so until Naiteote leaves early for the draft.
Which he likely will.
Could easily see that.
He will lead the team in tackles next year. So, boom. From the middle.
Let's hope he's healthy.
Tester Troy wants to know, Ryan, how many talent evaluators does USC have that are non-coaches? Alabama has like 10 to 15 guys that just watch tape and evaluate talent mainly for recruiting. Is USC taking advantage of the resources they have?
They definitely take advantage of the resources they have. They just don't have that many resources. And, I put some stuff actually in the war room a few weeks back, talked to a former someone that was on, familiar with the support staff. It's, I think it's 4 people right now. They used to have 5, and then Alex Rios ended up leaving after the UNLV game this year. So I think they have 3 guys and a graphic artist guy. So
they have a couple of graphic arts people.
Well, I think for the recruiting team specifically, there's one guy that does that. But it's bare bones. Like, it's not as many as other Pac-12 teams. And they would go to coaches meetings across the country, and you might have 10 or double-digit support staff people helping with recruiting, and USC has like 3, and those guys work their butts off. They do the Eric Ziskins of the world. They really Gavin Morris. They work really hard, and we've seen them now be part of the actual staff when people get fired and go out and they're on the road recruiting too. So it's not an easy job, and I think they do a really good job of it. For whatever reason, USC hasn't given them more people. They need more support. They need more bodies. So I don't know why, but that's they're not up to par with what some of the other schools are doing out there.
So I looked up this. I just searched through my text messages. I sent this to these guys a while back, but Clemson has a life coach. Like, they have so many staff members. They have 55 staff members, including coaches. So there's 10 coaches. That means they have 45 other people that are staff. Now, granted, USC has people that are your administration and stuff, your secretary or whatever it may be. So they probably have 20 other people, I would guess.
Yeah,
That'd be
nowhere
my guess, somewhere
near
like
that.
They have 45 other people outside of just the coaches at Clemson, and one of them is a life coach. Like, how do you get that job?
It's a nice job.
Yeah.
I mean,
we'll see.
that
That
helps.
That might be part of it, though. That might be. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, go
with
ahead.
the Lynn Swan changing the culture, that might be part of it. We don't know that yet. Like, during this offseason, they might hire a whole bunch of people. We'll see.
I mean, all of it helps. If you have one guy giving you your coffee in the morning, that's one less thing you have to do. It's an advantage. It's an advantage that I don't think USC is fully up with the times yet.
No. They've been that way too. Like, we talked about the weight room. It took forever for them to upgrade that. They were winning national championships with the worst facilities in the country for any top 50 program. That's just the kind of way USC can do that, though, because you still can be successful that way. They're still successful recruiting with a bare bones staff. But then a year like this, when you're signing a whole bunch of guys, it's not like a 19-person class. It's like a 28-person class, and there's a lot of plan Bs kind of things going on.
Yeah.
A bigger support staff, you might have got a few more guys, and that's not to say that the support staff doing a bad job. They do a great job, but there's only so much they can do.
Yeah, that's something like there was a full run on facilities, and every program added, that's why Oregon has such nice facilities. Washington State went, and they took the money that they got from the original Pac-12 deal. They went and built more stuff. USC, that was where the McKay Center and stuff Well, after that, teams were like, okay, well, everybody's getting facilities. What's next? What else can we do? Well, that's when Alabama gets 50 people on their staff because they're bringing in, they just brought in, I think, the former coach at Maryland. That's another
DJ
guy.
Durkin,
Yeah, they added him to their staff.
Which is like, whoa.
But Nick Saban can do that because Nick Saban has full power. He can bring anybody in. They'll be like, well, okay. They bring in Sarkisian. You can bring in Lane Kiffin. I don't care about their
Butch Jones.
Your former problems doesn't matter. I can bring them in and I can mold them or whatever. And you never hear any issues there for whatever reason. And you have all those ex-coaches are on staff as analysts and stuff. And that's what they're talking about there is all these extra people that are able to watch tape and say, oh, well, I saw this. When this one person does this, there's an extra tidbit. So Alabama has all this extra staff, and USC's like, all right, well, we got a couple of grad assistants. You guys go find something on tape or something for us. It's basically like 5-to-1 type of staff numbers. So how is USC going to keep up with that, or does USC want to try to keep up with that? We haven't seen if they do.
No.
We are reaching the top of the hour, so if you want to get your final questions in, we will answer those. We have a question from Christian who says, do the coaches give current players an inside scoop on who's going to commit? For example, maybe Randall Grimes decided to transfer because of the receivers that are expecting to sign this class.
I don't think that they necessarily say, hey, this is who we're getting or whatever, but the players, I'm assuming they're allowed to go into the recruiting war room or whatever, and you see on the board is like, all right, these are our targets. These are we want to get, they probably have a box that says need. All right, we need 3 receivers. But you're not scared away because of the competition of guys that are younger. You're not really worried about that. Usually it's the guys that are in front of you already. You don't usually worry about the guys that are behind you and, those guys are going to jump me. You usually figure you can stay ahead of people, or at least the competitors that you want on your team figure that. But I don't think that that's something that really plays in, that they go, yeah, we're going to get so-and-so. Because you're trying to get those kids to come. Everyone's you're recruiting when you bring them in. And the more competition it is, the better that's always the Pete Carroll way. The more competition you have, the better the team will be as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like fans. A lot of the players don't give a crap about recruiting. They don't know who's going. They don't know who's coming. They have the first summer workout. They don't know anyone's names. They'll ask us, like, hey, who's this guy? Or what? I mean, literally, like, that stuff happens. There are some players, though, that do get into recruiting, and they'll follow it. Maybe they'll follow their own position, but it's not
Max Brown.
It's not everybody. Max Brown would ask us stuff too. Like, he would
when he was still a recruit.
Yeah, but he would follow a lot of that stuff and find out. As a quarterback too, you're usually kind of involved in that more. But even like, it's funny. Like, people just assume like the coaches have like this one room of what's it called? This room of everyone knows what's going on. What's going on, Chuck? Is there someone outside?
No, I have a question. There's a question mark.
Oh, I didn't know. We don't know what you're
trying
doing.
to signal to Keely, and she's not getting
pointing
it at
to
all.
I don't know what you're talking about. But like, so you say you're like best friends with like the defensive back coach, and he would tell you everything he knows about recruiting. Like, you're still not gonna. It's not like the coaches just powwow every day and everyone tells each other. Everyone think they're like, they all have their own different views of recruiting. They might have offered different guys. Yes, it's not like this cohesive, like everyone knows the exact same thing. It's all kind of just putting stuff together. So that's why they would ask us stuff, because we're trying to always do that, put the stuff together.
Yeah. So some people are into it, but I don't think you're really looking back.
And players, not as much, usually.
Dakers11 says, hi, Keely. Dan, shotgun. I guess you're Dan today. He said the bottom line to him is it's at least 10 wins or bust next year. And then there was a couple of questions about that. Someone said, I think that the expectations are too high. What do you think is the kind of the ceiling, or I mean, not the ceiling, but what is kind of the floor or bust? What's to become for this team next year?
It's so hard to say, because you would have said 5-7. You're obviously nuking the program and starting over, not like changing the offensive coordinator. So who knows at this point? My gut is that Lynn Swann didn't want to do something this year, but would be open to it next year. So what would it be? Would it be like, is 9 wins not enough? Like, if you don't win the Pac-12 South, like, that's potential. Or 7-5, that's not enough. 8-4. I feel like it's going to be almost impossible to not win 8 games next year with Cliff Kingsbury running the offense. Like, to me, 7-5 is sort of the floor.
That's what I said this year.
Yeah.
And it was.
Got that one wrong, guys.
And
My bad.
I was wrong with it too. I didn't think the floor was that low. But then I think the threshold is going to be, what is good enough for Lynn Swann. If you don't win the Pac-12 and your offense has scored a lot of points, but and he wanted to keep the same, a lot of the same defensive coaches or special teams or strength or whatever, and the other aspects of the program don't do well, is that enough for Lynn Swann to say, okay, we're moving on and go in another direction? That's what's hard to say, but all bets are off when you say, oh, if they don't win 8 games next year, they're going to get fired. Like, that's bull, because you look what happened this year. 5-7 didn't get you fired. So what did you, 4-8 next year? Maybe, I don't know.
I think I've said for a while that the wild card is Lynn Swann, because he has not fired or hired a major, money revenue sport coach in either of the sport whatever I'm trying to say, one of the revenue sports. So we don't really know. Like, what are his expectations? What is these schools? Does the school care about winning national championships? We don't really know. Are they going to invest the money? Do they want to pay a buyout? Do they want to go and buy this coach and this? Like, all that has to come into it. So maybe they just say, what do we got? I can't even think of what is it. 2 more years on Clay Helton's contract after this year? Maybe they're
2020.
No, it could have been a 5-year. It could be 4 more years. The problem is Lynn Swann. You're right. I mean, Lynn Swann's never done this before. He's pretty much tied to Clay Helton at this point. And we know that there was a booster outrage. We know that there was fan outrage of what happened. He's not a very popular athletic director right now. He's embattled. If they struggle, even with Cliff Kingsbury, and like scored a bunch of points, I mean, it might be whoever the new president is, they're going to get an earful from everybody that donates money. Like, look, this isn't working. There could be a change there too. So, I mean, who knows? I mean, or they could go out and be 10-2 and people are happy again. So it's hard to say.
They could be 0-4 and fire then, or they could be 4-0 and people finally jump back on the bandwagon. Who knows?
You never know.
Or start off 1-3 and win the Rose Bowl. Like, who knows? We've seen that.
Who knows? Jordan wants to know if JT Daniels is the best fit for an air raid type of offense.
I think he is in the group. And someone else asked, and I'll find it in a second. Frank asked, does the QB need to be able to run with this new offense? No.
No, we've seen. Look at his offenses at Texas Tech and other places. Like, he's had the Johnny Manziels. He's had Patrick Mahomes and Baker. Like, but he's also had like Case Keenum, who can run a little bit, but he's not running. And whoever, I forget
Davis
who.
Webb, who was at Cal later.
Yeah, and then they had someone this year too that just wasn't. They had 3 different quarterbacks this year, but one of them,
Alan Bowman.
Yeah, who was not the most. I think what's good about Cliff Kingsbury is he will take what he has and use it well. So if it's a pocket passer or a guy that can run, he's going to utilize those talents. If he has a good tight end, they're going to use his tight ends. If he has a great running back, he's going to use him. So that's what's good. It's not like you have to be this in this kind of a system.
Yeah, Jay Samaro, his first year at Texas Tech, Cliff Kingsbury's first year. Jay Samaro was the Mackey Award winner, caught over 100 balls. I think he set the record for most yards by a tight end or something like that. Last 2 years, they barely used a tight end. When they had a good running back, he was a 1,400-yard running back. It led the Big 12 in rushing. That was with Mike Jinks as well, should be noted.
Yes.
But they didn't necessarily have a great running back last year. They didn't necessarily use the running back as much. So I think what we've seen from at least from his tenure at Texas Tech, is that he will mold the offense and find ways to create matchups for his best players. And I think that's what you want out of a coach. That is the ideal coach is, all right, I want to run a fast break offense in basketball. I want to run fast, but I want to run all the time. Well, I got 2 7-foot guys that are slow-footed, but we can dominate in the paint. Okay, well, we'll walk it up every single time. We'll try to feed the post as much as we can, and we'll build an offense around that. Like, if you can mold to your players, that's the best. The best coaches do that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're Nick Saban and all your players are the best players, that makes it easier.
We have a question from Philip, who says, "What do you think? What do you guys think will be the points per game average next year?"
So this year was 26
I
something.
think that sounds right. 26.8.
I think it gets into the mid-30s. I think it's going to be like 34, 35. Like, go up significantly.
Yeah, I could easily see 35. It might be more than that.
Yeah.
Like 38.
This is, I don't
know.
This is a talented team.
It's a tough schedule, though.
It is a tough schedule, but
It
there's
is
a
still
lot
a
of talent on
Pac-12
this
schedule.
team. Yeah, there's a lot of talent on this team. I think it's going to do really well. And you're going to be like, wow, why wasn't the offense anywhere near this before? And the reason is coaching.
Ryan laying it out on the line.
I'm just saying, that's my
Your
prediction
opinion.
and my guess.
Frank also asked earlier, do you hope that there's a true quarterback competition in the spring? And I think I said this last week or on our podcast previously, Family Feud podcast. We haven't plugged it yet, but make sure you're listening to that as well.
I thought we'd get through the whole thing.
That's anytime you have a new coach come in, you're going to have competition at the position. Any position coach that comes in, and if it's an offense coordinator, then you have competition at all positions. Now, they may be able to watch, and there's more tape on Amon-Ra St. Brown or on one of the outside wide receivers, but they're going to come in, they want to see their own eyes. They're going to be able to want to evaluate with their own eyes. Some coaches come in, they don't even look at what you've done previously.
Yeah.
Oh, well, what did you like? I think it was Clancy the first time he came in. They were like, well, what do you think about the defense? What can you do? Like, which players do you think are can you use or whatever? And he's like, yeah, I didn't really watch too much. I was more interested in watching the spring tape and, when they were trying to use my defense and stuff like that. Because, hey, you may be great in a power I formation, but you put them in a spread. I don't know if that guy's the same. We can use I don't know if we can use a Jerome Bettis in the spread offense the same way we can use him in a power I. So, I think that they're going to get in, they're going to see it. So there's going to be competition at every spot, especially in the spring. Spring is time for competition. There'll be some veterans that'll sit out because of injuries and stuff and trying to heal their bodies, guys that played a lot this season, because you'll see a lot of guys always have off-season surgeries and stuff, little minor surgeries. But I think there's going to be a lot of competition this spring, and I think it'll be interesting to watch.
We have a question from Kay who says, why don't they recruit more JUCO linemen since the O-line had issues the last couple of years?
They still got 15 offensive linemen on scholarship this year, and they brought in one, Bernard Shermer. So there's a lot. They have a lot of bodies. It's not like they needed more bodies on the offensive line.
I think that they like a lot of the guys. They just got to get them to work together, and they've got to get stronger. They got to be able to run block better. They didn't run block very well this year. They were really good pass blocking. They've got to be more consistent with the run block. And I think that, there's talented guys on the team.
Yeah.
Now they're losing some players. You lose Toa, you lose Chris Brown, you lose Jordan Austin, you lose a couple of guys. But, they're still going to have plenty of bodies there. Now, how much do you like those bodies? If you feel like, you can't get the job done. I mean, you lost Truman Doga. I forgot about him. But if you don't feel like guys like Austin Jackson, Andrew Voorhees, Elijah Vera Tucker, if you don't feel those guys can get it done, then that's when you go out and get the JUCO guy. When your guys that are your starters or your upperclassmen, like, these guys aren't getting it. That's when you go get JUCO guys. But I think they're very confident in some of the younger guys. I know they like Elijah Vera Tucker. Jalen McKenzie played a lot this year. Brett Nealon's going to take over, or Justin Dedich at the center spot. So there's guys that they like, and Tim Drevno likes. Now we'll see if he's still the offensive line coach or if he moves somewhere else or out. So it's going to be, if you like guys already, we can develop them. If you feel like these guys aren't getting it done, that's when you go the JUCO route.
Yeah.
It's 6:02. We reached the top of the hour. Any final questions, comments, concerns we would like to say on the show? Just a reminder to everyone who came late or missed the beginning, we are doing a special recruiting live show on Wednesday with Gerard Martinez. Fun, as I know.
Hey.
So look out for that. We'll give you a time. We'll tweet out the time. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. We'll get that out. And check out the Peristyle. We'll also have it up there too. Anything else, guys?
I got some rapid fire.
Yeah, Hector Tafoya. Hello, Ryan. Greetings from Austin, Texas. So thanks for watching down in Austin.
Yeah, we like Austin.
From Periscope.
Sometime. Good barbecue.
Good barbecue indeed.
We got some rapid fire here. We'll go with Frank. Do you believe they will replace Clancy? Not unless Clancy wants. If Clancy wants to be here, Clancy will be here. I think is what it looks like right now. If he wants to go somewhere, then he might go somewhere. HR said, will Pi Young ever see the field? With a pie emoji, so credit for that one.
Nice, pie emoji.
It's kind of crazy that he hasn't played it all the last 2 years after playing as a true freshman, but new coaching staff, you can always impress a new coaching staff. I think he fits in this offense. He's the type of guy that'll fit well. He's like a Trayvon Sidney. Those type of guys can get in the slot. You have more slot guys now. John, he said, I must demur with shotgun suggesting that CP's defense succeeded for any game last year. The breakdowns are obvious, but we did not get a lot of turnovers. If you don't get a lot of turnovers, this D fails. That is a good point, John.
That's a very good point. Yeah, 4 interceptions on the season.
If you're going to be super aggressive, you're going to try to get the sacks. You got to get the turnovers to go with it, and that's something this defense didn't do. They have to do better next year, or you're going to see a new defense coordinator for sure. Vigo wants to know, Keely, will you run a pro style offense? Keely, will you utilize a fullback, multiple tight ends? Keely, is UCLA recruiting you?
Everyone, they're called the Peanut Gallery for a reason. They were saying that I should be GM, I should be OC.
Oh, nice.
All these.
No, you shouldn't be GM or OC. But would you run a pro style offense?
How dare you?
That's the question.
Well, it depends on what players I have. I don't know which players I have. So
with the current roster, obviously.
I don't know. I got to think on that.
I would run the air raid offense with Cliff Kingsbury. That's what you would run. Nothing else. Run his thing. Hire a guy who's good at his job and let him do his job. That you've done the hard part. You got the hire down. Now just let him do his job.
Let it be. Just kidding.
All right, a couple of observations that go well together. Donald said you got to have that right mix of 5 stars and 4 and 3-star guys. Those 3-star guys play with a certain chip on their shoulders. That's true.
Yeah,
Gerard
says you need the mortar, right? It's not all the bricks, and you need that mortar that sticks them together.
You got to have guys that, like Ruben Peters is a great guy that he was great on special teams. He played the most snaps of anyone per game on special teams. You got to have guys like that. But you also need your stars to be stars. And as I said in the Notre Dame game, your seniors have to step up in big-time games, and they didn't as much in that game as they did. And little fella, the gamer, said the 5 stars should be ready to play right away at Southern California. They have to be given those opportunities as well.
And what have you seen from when they've actually gotten playing time? They look pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, like Tyler Vaughn's redshirted, but then he comes out and does really well.
Okay.
I mean, Michael Pittman probably saved 2 games on his own this past year, right? Like, he probably won you 2 games.
Talanoa was really good when he was in there.
Yeah.
But there's times when they look like freshmen, too. That's what happens. HR said Ryan Abraham should grow mutton chops.
Mutton chops? See, I'm old, 47, like soon to be older.
The term rapid fire is questions and good questions.
Yeah.
Go. That's a great.
Mutton chops.
This would be gray though. So it'd be like gray mutton chops. I'd have to like color them. Like that would be kind of weird. Yeah.
Okay.
I just go scruffy when I do it.
USC should run more. Should USC run more snaps under center for JT?
No.
They ran 34 this season, in case you guys are wondering,
Air raid.
and
No.
averaged 2.68 yards per play under center.
If Cliff Kingsbury wants to for his air raid offense, yes. But that's all. Just default to him. What
Leave
does
it
he
up
want
to
to do?
Cliff.
They ran twice as much. They gained twice as many yards per play.
And
as a shotgun.
Cliff, you should trust, and that's all.
Alrighty. Shotgun, I'm cutting you off.
Oh, last one. Do you think, Mateo asked, do you think that they do the halftime coach interview with Cliff Kingsbury instead of Clay to start the season? You know, Clay will be getting booed the first game.
Oh.
That's a,
No, I don't
No,
think
you can't
so.
do that.
I don't think they're going to come out thinking they're going to get booed to start the season. There's positivity at least now. Like making some coaching changes, at least it brought some positivity. So I think they're going to assume that. It was tough at the end of the year. They couldn't do a lot.
Look, if you put up like 28 points in the first half against Fresno State, I know you're getting a lot more cheers if it's Cliff Kingsbury is the one that they're talking to. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I might see like this might be an option if we're doing like if it's 28-0 or 28-7 at half. I'm like, well, we put Cliff out there, give him a chance to talk to people.
I mean, we don't know what the fans are going to do, but I don't think USC or I'm not going to assume that they're going to start booing Clay Helton like in September or late August, like they were,
No, but I think you're getting a lot more cheers if it's Cliff that comes.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
speaks.
Yeah.
And he's going to be on the sideline anyways, right? That's what we assume. Last one, second last one.
I
Have
thought-
you guys heard if the hiring of Cliff Kingsbury has positively affected season ticket sales or donations? I'll ask Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard. So we get a lot of like negative feedback, even for us, like people subscribing to the website, even though we're not USC, we cover USC. People have said, you know what, I don't want my membership anymore because I don't want to follow the team anymore because I walked away from my season tickets and blah. So we've heard a lot of that. A lot of people saying that they don't want their tickets and all that kind of stuff anymore. But I've heard other people too, are like, you know what, I didn't want to, but now there's some excitement there. I want to come and see. So I think it's helped for sure. Like I'm not saying, I don't know what percentage or whatever, but there's definitely a lot of people that have emailed us that said, I'm done with USC football. I don't want to follow this team anymore, blah, 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 blah. But some of them have changed their minds or decided like I was going to, but now I'm going to stick around and see what he does. So I think it definitely helped.
This is an interesting question you two brought up. Do you think with Cliff and those who are added, USC will have a real spring game this spring?
Ooh.
I think it depends on your player health. And player health has not been good the last 4, if you want to count season and spring as two separate things, the last 4 or 5. Spring a couple years ago, season, spring, this past season, it hasn't been really good. So if the health is good, then I would say, yeah, let's go for it. I don't think that they're actively trying to avoid it. I just think that they're commonly having a lot of injuries, and that's become an issue.
That would change the culture. That would be something different. I'm not going to bet on that they would. I think they should.
If Clay Helton's still there, I feel like it's still.
Also, they
Business
probably
as usual.
won't because then they'll go, well, the Pac-12 will air it, and then teams will see our plays. Like they can't look at Texas Tech's plays from last season, but I feel like that would be the mentality.
Yeah. So I'm guessing no, but should they? Yes.
Sounds good. Alrighty. For those of you who are just tuning in, we had to bump this down to 5 p.m. We'll be back on Wednesday. So special date Wednesday in the nighttime region. We'll give you more details as we know. We nail those down. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up, guys?
Oh, thanks for tuning in. And sorry, we did a little early. Keely's got stuff to do, so we're on Keely's schedule. So.
And check out the Family Feud podcast. It'll be up later, hopefully tonight.
No, it will be up tomorrow.
I'll do my part tonight, but apparently someone's skipping out.
Don't forget, we've got one more day of buy one, get one free, USCfootball.com membership. Sign up now. Get the War Room Friday morning. Get all the signing day stuff. Lots of VIP content's been going up. So be the most informed USC fan you can be, and that's by being a subscriber to USCfootball.com.
And make sure you're following Ryan in particular, but all of us on Twitter so that you know exactly what time the tunnel visions will be coming on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just for extra.
At Inside Troy.
Inside Troy.
At Keely is my name. You can put up
I'll put up our little titles again. There you go. You can follow us there.
We'll tweet out once we figure out what's going on. But I'll schedule them live too once we
Nail that down.
Just so that Jasper doesn't miss a time again.
Well,
Nice.
also Jasper's
Can you do
canceling
it?
a date on Wednesday and rescheduling it to Friday so he can watch.
Jasper canceling a date. for
Shouts to
us.
Jasper.
Or just it could be a date night. You can watch Tunnel Vision.
True. You never know.
What's more romantic than that, Jasper?
I don't know.
And we'll give you a shout out. Like we'll say, then
We'll
you look
hype
so
you up
cool
for your date.
Like,
It'll be perfect.
well, yeah. Send us like a picture or something. We'll put it up there.
No, we're not doing that. Alrighty.
So I got vetoed.
Sorry, Ryan. This has been an interesting tunnel vision. All right.
My boss just got on me.
That's Shotgun. That's Ryan. I'm Keely. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.
See ya.